Most men have no idea they're making this mistake. They think attraction is built by saying the right thing, impressing a woman with achievements, showing confidence, or trying to appear mysterious. But women rarely become emotionally captivated because a man talks about himself. They become captivated because of how he makes them feel when they're talking about themselves. And that's where almost everything changes. What if I told you that there are a handful of questions that can instantly shift the emotional atmosphere between you and a woman? Not because they're clever. Not because they're manipulative. But because they activate something deeper than attraction itself. They make her feel understood. Women rarely tell you this directly. Most men spend dates trying to prove their value. The men who create powerful attraction do something entirely different. They create emotional movement. They lead conversations into places most people never go. And when a woman feels emotionally seen, emotionally safe, and emotionally stimulated at the same time, something remarkable begins to happen. But here's what most men never realize. The questions themselves aren't the secret. The secret is what those questions communicate beneath the surface. Stay with me, because by the end of this conversation, you'll understand 6 powerful questions that can create emotional tension, deeper connection, and genuine attraction in ways most men never discover. After years of studying human behavior, relationship dynamics, emotional intelligence, and attraction psychology, one pattern becomes impossible to ignore. People don't remember conversations. They remember feelings. Research in psychology repeatedly shows that emotional experiences create stronger memories than ordinary exchanges. That's why someone can forget an entire discussion but never forget how another person made them feel. And when it comes to attraction, feelings are everything. A woman doesn't become emotionally invested because you listed your accomplishments. She becomes invested because something about your interaction touched her emotions, challenged her thinking, sparked her imagination, or made her feel uniquely understood. The strongest attraction isn't logical. It's emotional. And this leads us to a powerful psychological truth. Human beings crave significance. Everyone wants to feel seen. Everyone wants to feel understood. Everyone wants to feel like there's more to them than what the world notices on the surface. Women are no different. In fact, many women spend their lives having conversations that stay at the surface level. They talk about work. They talk about schedules. They talk about daily responsibilities. They talk about things that require almost no emotional vulnerability. But when someone asks a question that reaches deeper, something shifts. Walls begin to lower. Interest begins to grow. Curiosity begins to expand. And that's where the first question comes in. Ask her this. What is something about you that most people completely misunderstand? Think about how different this question feels. Most people ask, what do you do? Most people ask, where are you from? Most people ask questions that can be answered in seconds. But this question tells her something important. It tells her you're interested in who she is beneath appearances. Imagine a woman who has spent years being labeled as confident and independent. Everyone assumes she has everything figured out. Yet privately, she's sensitive, thoughtful, and sometimes overwhelmed. When you ask what people misunderstand about her, you're inviting her to reveal the hidden side of herself. And here's what most men never realize. People feel connected to those who understand parts of them that others overlook. The moment she begins sharing that hidden reality, attraction can start growing because emotional intimacy is beginning to form. And this is where things get interesting. The second question creates an entirely different emotional experience. Ask her. What makes you feel most alive? Notice how this question bypasses routine thinking. Instead of asking what she does, you're asking what energizes her soul. A woman might talk about traveling. She might talk about dancing. She might talk about creating art. She might talk about helping people. Whatever her answer is, you're learning something powerful. You're discovering where her emotional energy lives. Most men focus on facts. Attractive conversations focus on feelings. When she talks about something that makes her feel alive, she naturally becomes more animated. Her voice changes. Her facial expressions change. Her emotional state changes. And people unconsciously associate those positive emotions with whoever is present during that experience. Picture a woman describing a moment she watched the sunrise on a mountain after a difficult year. Notice how her eyes light up. Notice how her energy shifts. That emotional activation is incredibly powerful. The next point changes everything. Because attraction isn't just about understanding who someone is. It's about understanding what shaped them. Ask her. What experience changed the way you see life? This question goes straight into personal meaning. Every person has defining moments. Moments of loss. Moments of growth. Moments of realization. Moments that changed everything. When a woman shares one of these stories, she's revealing the emotional blueprint behind who she has become. Most men never reach this level of conversation. They stay trapped in small talk. But small talk rarely creates emotional connection. Meaning creates connection. Imagine a woman telling you about a challenge she overcame years ago. As she speaks, she's not just sharing information. She's sharing identity. She's showing you how she became the person sitting in front of you. And when someone trusts you enough to reveal that part of themselves, attraction often begins growing naturally because trust and emotional openness are increasing together. But here's another reason nobody talks about. Women aren't attracted only to men who are interesting. They're attracted to men who make them feel interesting. Think about that carefully. Many men try to become fascinating. The most memorable men make others feel fascinating. And that's why the fourth question is so powerful. Ask her. What is something you've always wanted to do but haven't done yet? This question activates imagination. It activates possibility. It activates desire. Suddenly she's not thinking about her daily routine. She's thinking about dreams, goals, adventures, experiences, future versions of herself. Psychologically, future-focused emotions create excitement. Excitement and attraction often become intertwined because both activate anticipation. Picture a woman describing a place she's always wanted to visit. Maybe she wants to see Italy. Maybe she wants to start a business. Maybe she wants to learn something new. As she imagines it, she's emotionally entering that future. And because you're the one guiding that conversation, you become associated with those positive emotions. That's incredibly powerful. And this leads directly into the fifth question. A question that touches one of the deepest human desires. Ask her. What do you wish more people understood about relationships? Now you're entering territory that reveals values, beliefs, emotional needs, expectations, experiences. This question tells you how she thinks. It tells you what matters to her. It tells you what she has learned through life. And this is where many men miss something important. Attraction without compatibility creates confusion. Real connection requires understanding. Imagine a woman saying she wishes more people understood the importance of honesty, or emotional consistency, or communication. Her answer isn't random. It's revealing something meaningful about her emotional world. And when you genuinely listen, without interrupting, without trying to impress, something subtle happens. She feels respected. She feels heard. She feels valued. These emotional experiences often create stronger attraction than any rehearsed line ever could. But we're not finished. Because the sixth question may be the most powerful of all. Ask her. What is something you're proud of that nobody really knows about? Take a moment to appreciate the depth of that question. Most people carry quiet victories. Challenges they've overcome. Personal growth nobody noticed. Strength nobody applauded. Achievements nobody celebrated. When you ask this question, you're giving her permission to acknowledge her own story. And that's rare. Imagine a woman who spent years rebuilding her confidence after a difficult period in life. Maybe nobody fully understands what she overcame. Maybe nobody realizes how much strength it took. When she shares that experience, she's revealing a deeply personal part of herself. And because you created the space for that conversation, the emotional impact becomes memorable. But here's what most men never realize. These questions aren't powerful because they create attraction. They create attraction because they create emotional connection. That's the difference. Many men approach conversations trying to get something. The strongest connections happen when you're trying to understand something. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you. Not waiting for their turn to speak. Not judging. Not competing. Just listening. How did that feel? Rare. Meaningful. Refreshing. Women feel the same way. And this is where emotional intelligence becomes attractive. Because confidence isn't dominating a conversation. Confidence is being secure enough to explore another person's world without needing constant validation. Imagine two men on a date. One spends the evening talking about himself. The other spends the evening creating meaningful emotional experiences through thoughtful conversation. Who do you think she'll remember? The answer is obvious. And this is where attraction becomes misunderstood. Most people think attraction starts with appearance. Appearance may create attention. But emotional experiences create attachment. There's a huge difference. Attention gets someone interested. Connection keeps them interested. And every question we've discussed today serves a deeper purpose. Not manipulation. Not tricks. Not psychological games. Understanding. Curiosity. Presence. Authenticity. Because people can sense intentions. A woman can often feel when a man is trying to use techniques. She can also feel when a man is genuinely fascinated by who she is. The emotional experience is completely different. And that's why these questions work best when they're asked with sincere curiosity. Not because you're following a script. Because you're genuinely interested. And this brings us to the emotional realization that changes everything. Many men spend years believing attraction is about becoming someone else. More impressive. More mysterious. More perfect. But genuine attraction often grows when you're present enough to see another person clearly. The man who listens deeply stands out in a world full of people waiting to talk. The man who understands emotions stands out in a world obsessed with appearances. The man who creates meaningful conversations stands out in a world drowning in distractions. Picture a woman leaving a conversation with you. She can't remember every sentence. She can't remember every word. But she remembers how she felt. She remembers feeling understood. She remembers feeling emotionally engaged. She remembers feeling comfortable enough to share parts of herself she doesn't usually reveal. And that's the kind of connection people rarely forget. Because beneath attraction, beneath dating, beneath relationships, there is a universal human desire. To be seen. To be heard. To be understood. When you become someone who offers those experiences, your interactions change. Your confidence changes. Your relationships change. And most importantly, your understanding of attraction changes. You stop chasing approval. You start creating connection. You stop trying to impress. You start trying to understand. You stop focusing on what to say next. You start focusing on what the other person is truly saying. And that's where real influence begins. Not in clever lines. Not in manipulation. Not in pretending to be someone you're not. But in emotional intelligence. In curiosity. In presence. In genuine human connection. Because at the end of the day, the most attractive quality isn't perfection. It's understanding. The most memorable conversations aren't the loudest. They're the deepest. And the men who create lasting attraction aren't always the most charismatic. They're often the men who make others feel deeply valued. Remember these 6 questions. Not as techniques. Not as tricks. But as invitations into meaningful conversations. Because when you learn how to understand people on a deeper level, attraction becomes less about convincing and more about connecting. And that's the ultimate psychological truth. The strongest relationships are built not on being impressive, but on being present. Not on controlling emotions, but on understanding them. Not on chasing attention, but on creating connection. Develop that ability, and you'll discover something powerful. The more deeply you understand others, the more naturally others become drawn to you. And that is a form of confidence no one can fake, no one can steal, and no one can ignore.